Rupert Lowe, please.
Thank you, Geoffrey. I think my question is to Simon. So I read again in the MOD report, and I'd just like some clarity on this, and it says the MOD told us fraud defence and the police have been working jointly on a new investigative model for fraud and economic crime, and this is the key word, which could include joining police and fraud defence case management systems. Is it going to, or is it still a possibility, which this sort of suggests?
So, 2 points, if I may. The first point in relation to the development of joint working, which is much further than the embed in the hotline. This is being developed at the moment as a course of action which is broader than the MDP and fraud defence, which also includes the single service police. Because they have an ownership of this responsibility as well. And that is being worked through at the moment, a part of wider defence reform. But that's a very complex area because that's looking at the whole set of capabilities that sit within the service police and how you manage the level of investigation and ownership through two different criminal justice systems. Specific to the point that you make around the outcome and what that looks like as far as how you would then develop that through a case management system. Firstly, fraud defence are developing access to an alternative system, which Anine might be able to comment on. We ourselves in the Ministry of Defence Police are embarking on developing a new system that is broader than just case management. It also involves command and control, intelligence. That process is now, I believe, through a tendering process. There may be opportunities there for licensing opportunities for fraud defence to have access to that, but that will be very much governed by whether or not the access controls can be put in place around protection of police information as per the Information Commissioner's Officer under MOPI, under the necessary data protection law. So that's all being worked through at the moment, but the ambition is very much to see how we can dare to share, very much also through blended ways of working, which, again, having made the point earlier, means that we work to the sum of our parts, but recognising the independent skills and capabilities that are required.
I mean, I think that word should be should, not could, because it seems to me common sense. And I hear your answer, and I hear you talking about reasons why it's difficult for it to happen. I think you've got to overcome those problems, because this is fraud, this is dishonesty, and as I said, this needs to be dealt with. And I think, we've moved from basically a nation of shopkeepers, and as the private sector is taxed into oblivion and the public sector grows like a weed, you are going to see more fraud. The nation of shopkeepers used to keep their own accounts. The state's incapable of keeping its accounts. So I don't know, I've always had this theory, and I'd be interested to know what you think, that the state often builds up great big numbers of people who don't communicate, don't work together, they sit in silos, and they cost the taxpayer a lot of money. I actually think if you put together a lightweight team, which is a combination of both the police and the MOD, you use your whistleblowing line to effectively identify cases that need to be investigated. You can then work through those, investigate the ones you need to. But equally, if you decide you want to drop without any notice on a department, and you want to do a thorough audit of what they're doing and pull apart every single thing they're doing, if need be, listen to tape-recorded lines, listen, whatever you do. I don't know whether you tape-record lines. In financial services, everything was taped. You could go back and you could listen to messages, phone calls, every single detail, orders placed, the lot. Now, I don't know whether you do that. But if you have a genuine desire to look after the taxpayer, I think you do need to get this lightweight team, which will cost you a lot less than a vast group of people who don't talk to each other. And then you make people fear what happens when they're caught doing something wrong. And as I said earlier, people have to fear that when they get caught doing something wrong, they go to prison. Prison is not a comfortable place. So you've got to have some fear in there so that these people who are basically procuring large quantities of arms and munitions and other things, which are now so important to the country, if they're caught committing fraud, they get punished. And I don't know, I'd be interested to know, why can't you cut down this fixed cost base and set up a joint venture which actually attacks the issue?
So I think just a couple of points there. The first is that I wholeheartedly agree there is an absolute moral, ethical, financial imperative to get to a point where we are reducing down the risk of fraud in the organisation for those reasons, but also from a security perspective as well. Secondly, how we do that. We've already embarked on that journey on looking at how we can work better together. The NAO report is helpful in the sense that it holds that mirror up to where some of the risks and vulnerabilities are. The assuring part is that we're already in train on delivering some of those capabilities, and bar the detail of how that work and how we coalesce together, which is still in development, very much the direction of travel is to do something where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, according to the individual capabilities of each part of the organisation.
Well, when you've sort of machinated long enough, Geoffrey, I think we need a report on exactly what. So is this could going to become a should? Are we going to be given all sorts of complex reasons why you can't make it a should? 'Cause I think the NAO's report, if I had a report like that on my department, I would be very worried, and I would actually be having all the drains up. So can we have a report on what, and you tell me it's still in flux, it's still not decided, it's still not done.
Rupert,
we want action, not words.
Rupert, we will deliberate on all of the evidence we've heard today. We will produce a report with recommendations, and I don't know, I can't preempt what's going to be in our report, but we will look at all these things.
Okay.
And if I may, the counter-fraud strategy refresh, which will be in September, will absolutely set out how we're taking forward the joint investigative model, because you're quite right. We see that as the heart of how we effectively join up. We did review the structure between counter-fraud and MDP to make sure that we thought it was still the most robust model, and what we concluded from that was it was, but we wanted to codify some of the governance arrangements, which again will be included in the strategy refresh that you will have sight of the summary of that.
I'd rather watch what the hands are saying than what the mouth is, what the hands are doing rather than the mouth is saying, actually. I mean, that's what we want to see, I think, as a committee. We want to see some action.
So, Anine, we've almost got to the end, you'll be glad to know, but back to Catherine's questions at the beginning, this 48p going to 134 for every pound spent in 24/5. I imagine a lot of that will have come from the two cases that I'm going to give you the details of, but not the names, although they may well be published. This is again in Accountancy Age evidence, so I think it is reliable and the evidence will be published. Let me quote you the two cases and then ask you what your organisation is going to do to try and prevent these at an earlier stage. So in April 25, an ex-corporal, and I won't name him, was sentenced to prison for defrauding the MOD of £911,000, 677 pence through fraudulent expense claims submitted via internal online platform. As an aside, the court heard he retained over £550,000 for his own personal use, which I think says something about the court process. A separate case, an Army financial administrator was found to have stolen more than £300,000 by issuing cheques to himself while falsifying stubs to make them appear as payments to legitimate vendors.
I think the whole lot of them are a bunch of pork-barreling clowns, and I find it incredible.